Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Social Pillar. Welcome.
Keep it short. To keep reading copyright language.
Yeah, we're going to get it. Yeah. DCMA, what's that?
Just talking.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. G'day. Welcome, Ian. Welcome, Thea. Thank you.
Hello, Jared.
For joining us.
Hi, Jared. Hi, Ian.
And hi, everyone tuning in and listening. We are a bunch of forever DMs who decided to get together and create an ongoing... Are you okay?
I'm so sorry.
He's lost it. He's gone. Start how we want to go on, ladies and gentlemen. Good to see you and welcome back. Are you okay?
Goodness. Okay. Apologies, headphone users.
Headphone morning, belated.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Social Pillar, the ongoing conversation about the value of role-playing games, their crafts, cultures, and communities in our world. We come from Indigenous land, and we'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we're coming to you from, pay our respects to elders past and present, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who are watching or listening. Always will be Aboriginal, and sovereignty was never ceded. But we're forever game masters. We're not. Like, we try not to be. But we
identify playing.
Learning how not to be.
A bunch, I swear. But yes, we would like everyone to welcome everyone to the conversation. Welcome to the show. My name is Jared, also known as the GM Chef, the Game Master Chef. And joining me as always are Ian and Theo. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, it's me. Hi. It's me, OMGM. Haha. No one's laughing at that. Okay, good. I am OMGM, a game master, hence the GM. And I'm here. I can breathe. Everyone who had concerns, I am fine. Yes, I cough like a teeny tiny kitten, and I'm okay with that. Always a pleasure to be here with these two I'm pointing at the right side, these two wonderful humans. Jared, already you meet, and this fine specimen of a wonderfulness.
Well, thank you very much, Thea. Very nice to hear about the specimen that I am. And it's lovely to see you two as well, guys. It's so good to chat with you again, Jared and Thea, my wonderful GMs, all you GMs out there, and anyone playing role-playing games, you are so welcome. I'm Ian Zammit. I'm also Role-Play Experience, run a whole bunch of games, just finished a wonderful game with a group of 10-year-olds and their mums, and it was fantastic. And we're here just to continue to talking about the culture around role-playing games, what they are, how it's changing our world, and just delighted to be here. And what are we talking about tonight, Jared?
Yeah.
I feel like if anyone joins the online role-playing community in one capacity or another, whether Reddit or a Facebook group, you might see or even videos on YouTube, you might see the topic about challenges that people face. And forever there are challenging approaches and playing styles and sometimes conflicting personalities. So we want to work out the kind of not all of the nuts and bolts of it. We don't want to guide anyone in any particular direction, but we want to talk from our experiences in various sagas of role-playing games and over many years, how we've encountered different challenges, how we might resolve them, and kind of, demystify some of the language about like what metagaming might be and kind of all the nuances around that, hopefully. So if you guys have any thoughts, feelings, or feedback, please chuck it in the chat. And if you're listening after the fact, try and find a place to leave a comment, because we'd love to hear everyone's thoughts on this, because it can be very dividing when you see some controversial things, wouldn't you guys?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing. Like one of the things we talked about, and one of the reasons I think we wanted to talk about this, is it often gets described as this kind of dichotomy, and us and them. It's a group versus a challenging player, a group with a challenging DM, a DM with a challenging group, and it seems to be set up as a conflict. And I think that the kind of belief that I've come to, I think we've talked about, is that it's not a matter of right and wrong, unless, you are literally killing your players. I do not recommend that. There's a whole lot of laws against it.
That classic Freudian slip that everyone makes.
Yeah. I'm going to kill him. Who? But I think it often it's about a misalignment. And whether that is a misalignment of values or expectations, that is where some of these challenges can come from. And I think that's something, the kind of angle that we wanted to come at this from, rather than, as much as I'm sure we'd love to, is give a playbook on how you deal with this challenge, if this, do that type of thing.
Yeah, I like that you said that about the dichotomy. I think we're in an age as well with social media as it is, where someone will put something up and then it automatically divides into whoever's the loudest to speak, I'm against this or I'm for this, and then it becomes a fight. It happens way too often, and that's exactly the kind of things that I love about this conversation that we have with Social Pillar, to kind of, okay, this is a conversation. This is not about us and them in black and white. This is actually, let's talk about the nuance of this. Let's have a look at when do we have challenging playing styles that cause some friction, and it's like, okay, why? It's never going to be the same thing for two different groups, and even within one group there could be different kinds of conflict or different kinds of tension, or just things that people are like, hang on, this isn't quite working. What is happening here? And I like that we talked about last night, and we're coming into this, that there was it came down to the expectations that we have when we're coming into a game that may be different to what someone else has. And so it's actually, I'm really glad we can have a look at a few different facets of role-playing games when you're in a group, and some of the different expectations that people can have when they come into it, and different values that they hold when they're coming into a game as well, and how that can affect the gameplay. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. I think a good thing to start with, and maybe to sort of talk about, we all hear about it, and as GMs hear about problem players. I mean, but what are we talking about? Like what would be not that we call them problem players, but why would people use that term problem player, do you think?
It's definitely down to
go, Jared?
Yeah. I mean, like, we could, what was Ian? Yes. A suggestion?
Oh, I was just saying, if you wanted to.
Just run through like our topics, or?
Well, I guess the thing was, we can go through, I think we can go through as it comes through, if you want to lead that when we come down to each of the topics. But I thought just the term of problem player itself can automatically set up a framework of saying that there's a problem with someone. And I don't, it sounds like I don't see it that way. I see it as more like, if we
challenges.
It's like, there's a clash, there's a challenge, there's something.
And I think that comes down to somewhere. And I think that comes down to a very human tendency that we have, is when there is a friction, when there is a situation that we personally find difficult, it's very tempting, it's very habitual, it's very easy to say that is an external force. It is not anything to do with like a shared responsibility. It is a problem player, or it is a problem DM. And I think
you can't
that
isolate it. Yeah,
because by using that language, you actually disempower yourself to have anything to do with it. You know, it's like saying, this is problematic weather. This is bad weather. I can't affect the weather, which most days I can't.
Exactly. The idea that as soon as you apportion, it may not seem like blame, but if you apportion a value to a person or to a situation, then that becomes that, as opposed to, well, look, we've seen these actions. We can see there's friction with what's going on here.
Yeah.
This is clearly not working. Okay, what can we do? Because we all know that we trust each other. We want to build trust with each other. How do we want to change this action or this atmosphere or what's going on?
Or this dynamic. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think the kind of, sorry, you go, Jared.
Yeah, no worries. The dynamic, though, I think, and the mindset that you can approach this with is something I've talked on a lot, which is fault versus responsibility. And like generally a lot of the things that we experience in life, these challenges that we overcome with people and social dynamics, which is obviously a core to a role-playing game, you don't want to push that blame onto anyone, because then nobody else can take responsibility. And and just like the weather thing, you don't know if it's going to rain, but if it looks like it's going to rain, are you going to be responsible enough to take an umbrella and handle yourself about it? So as soon as blame is put on someone else, it kind of excuses responsibility, excuses any kind of reason to do anything about the problem sometimes.
I do want to very clearly differentiate, though, before we go on further. There are behaviours that are clearly unacceptable, and we are not talking about that. We're not talking about harassing or bullying other people. Aggression. Yeah. Any of that stuff, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the kind of interpersonal challenges, because saying that, we all have a shared responsibility, one person is clearly behaving inappropriately, is not an appropriate frame. So that is not what we're talking about. And I did want to kind of be very emphatic about that.
And we are going to be talking about the behaviors more than anything else, because the behavior is probably what's going to be the most challenging thing. So we're going to, I'll quickly run through our ideas of what we want to cover. Min-maxing. Is someone deliberately trying to win or achieve a certain outcome, and is the DM wanting that, allowing that? Does anybody else want to do that? Just communicating and making sure that everyone's on the same page. Rules lawyering, and I feel like that's just when conflict comes up, in terms of maybe the DM's adjudication isn't the core of it all. The Monty Hall concept, Ian, you can talk.
I love that.
Monty Hall it's an old term. It's related to a very particular. It has a very particular story behind it, but in general, it's about players who are like, all right, what cash do I get? What experience do I get? How do I get this so I can buy things and win at this level, sort of thing. So it's that kind of idea of accumulation to play the game. Yeah.
Yeah, so what do I get for my time? My effort.
Yeah.
And then
the numbers. Give me the numbers.
The numbers game.
That leads into competition or cooperation in a way. Is it the players versus the game master? Is that the goal? Is this going to be about killing player characters or
not players?
Making a very, exactly, a clear definition. It's an extra word. It's not that hard. Which I will be trying to do on Monday when I run a massive one shot of Curse of Strahd again. Not as insane as my other one, but we're gonna try and run that all day, and that's gonna be fun. So I've said to them, this will be deadly. Make multiple characters. Do it. And that's the fun. That's the expectation. We've said it. We've communicated it, and everyone is.
Yes.
So,
and I know there's a bunch of things we're going to talk about, but I want to jump in on that word that we talked about there, because I think it is a key point, is expectations. And I think something that is really, when we're talking about challenges, to me, it's a misalignment of expectations, expectations of what you want to put in the game, what you expect the game to be, but also what's important to you about that game. And I think when and when that is misaligned, I think that's where the challenge is, and that's where the friction and genuine conflict can come out of that. And
I feel like also if you surpass that, and if you surpass that, so like if you as a DM, something that I really like to do is kind of profile my players and find out what their kick is, what do they enjoy, what have they done to their character sheet, and how can I make sure that they use it. Right, that's the biggest thing that you can get as an insight to what that player wants from your game. So as soon as you're not just meeting expectations but exceeding them, because you're now accommodating for their choices, and that's whether you ask for a big backstory or something else, but you can it's a big scale.
That's a really good way. I think all of these things that we're going to talk about, there's a couple of others that we'll bring up in a second, is all about, like you said, expectations and setting them, and having that preparation time, like the session 0 of being able to sit down, or like you said, almost like a questionnaire or a chance to sit back and actually work out the kicks of the players. What is it that they really enjoy? What did that setting the tone and the theme for the particular game that you're going to have, knowing what kind of graphic levels that they want to have, if it's going to be like a fully intense adult themed kind of game, or if it's going to be very whimsical, lighthearted, and not going into anything too explicit. Setting those expectations can really help these be mitigated right from the out, so that people know. And I think that developing communication right from the start as an expectation is a really good idea, just to say, guys, we may not know everything right now, so let's keep talking and let's keep developing it as we go.
So, and
Yeah.
I think, though, we shouldn't underestimate how hard that can be. I mean, we're all, let's face it, we're all, some of us less so, but middle-aged, relatively comfortable with ourselves people. Okay, maybe me and Ian. Jared's the young end of the group. But I think it's about that. Having a difficult conversation can be really challenging for people. And I think that it's important to be okay with saying, actually, I'm really struggling to have a difficult conversation, and being comfortable to reach out, or having avenues to reach out. If it's a forum, if it's your peer group. I think we talked a couple of weeks ago how important it is to have peer groups and people you can trust, because it is hard. Anyone who's ever had a difficult conversation at work or in a relationship or with family, it sucks. Emotionally, it's challenging. And if you are caught up and you love this game, it's going to be challenging. So sometimes addressing these problems sometimes can be really challenges. Look at me going there with language. But it can be really hard. And I think it's doing yourself a disservice and doing us a disservice if we say it to ourselves as well, that saying you just need to. It's not just need to. We acknowledge this can be really hard. But I think we kind of wanted to talk about sharing some of the things that we've experienced and how we've approached it. Not that this is the correct way, but I think
this is 3 ways.
It's some ways.
Out of many.
Yeah. And it's sharing our experiences that sometimes we've been successful, sometimes less.
Yeah, and then in retrospect and hindsight, of course, I made a big decision many years ago when I started playing 5th edition, and I had to let someone go from the group because I summarized it down to they weren't right for the group and the group wasn't right for them. And that didn't need to be expanded on, and I couldn't expand on it at the time. I've now had many years to reflect on that and go, I could, should, and would do better. And it's also never too late. I know that I could contact that person at any time, but it's something that had to happen, and I really, really feel I made a good choice because this is the group that I played Curse of Strahd with 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
So
that's a really
the fact that all
good
of those
point.
friendships stay forged for so many years. I don't want to say that was the core factor, but that game was the reason, and I needed to protect it any way that I could. So.
And I think that brings out why you want to have these conversations is sometimes you can get, I mean, for you guys who run a lot of campaigns, this can be really important. So protecting that group is really important. And even running short games, it's really important that if you're going to have someone for a couple of one-shots, they need to feel comfortable and safe in that. Or if they're not right, they need to know that that this is not for them and that is okay, unless they're being completely inappropriate.
I think that's a good point, that engendering trust, we've talked about this a few times, and how important it is that over time that the group that you're with, you continue to try to build trust, and it's 2-way as well. Well, multiple ways. It's that your group, you form a community over time because you start building a certain kind of trust based on the expectations and the values you continue to communicate. So, and absolutely, we continue to learn from the failures. I swear that's part of the wonderful dynamic that we get to enjoy in role-playing games, is that the actual playing of this teaches us things through playing other characters about how do you engage with other people, how do you solve problems, how do you talk with other people and communicate to make change for the better. So we're pretty, knowing that, I think that is, I just feel blessed. I think it's a really good thing. I think it would be good if it was known more, that people understand that that's what you can get out of it.
Yeah, I agree.
Deeper layers.
Yeah, well, let's talk some details. Let's dive into some of the Pacific challenges. Let's dive into that
Indian, the Atlantic ladder.
Yeah, we'll get to that later.
Yes,
it's come.
Speaking of maximum, getting maximum water, ocean, I'll see myself out.
Okay.
Well, who wants to start actually with the min-maxes? If you want to talk about min-maxes, who wants to start?
So I guess we summarized it quickly in our preamble. Breaking the game rules for the best character to beat the game.
Yeah, what is a min-maxer, in case we've got people who perhaps aren't familiar with the term?
And I mean,
Okay.
yeah, I guess breaking the rules, but like creating something that wasn't necessary, like is a very niche thing. I think many people have heard of the Tabaxi monk, and like Tabaxi gives you an insane speed. Plus, when you do this and then monk thing fast, you can move utterly ridiculous speeds. So I have played with some min maxes. I played with people with what I prefer to call optimized characters. Which is a much clearer thing, because to a non-gamer that doesn't mean sense, but the term comes from minimizing some stats to get the maximum amount of others and to have these insane impacts in very specific situations. So
I might give, if I could give an example out of this for people out there who may not know much about role-playing games too. One of the simplest things in Dungeons and Dragons that people have are their main ability scores: strength, how strong you are, how dexterous and agile you are, intelligent, wise, charismatic, all that kind of stuff. So you've got a range of 3 to 18. 3 six-sided dice can bring that kind of wide range, and it usually ends up around 10 to 12 is an average for that. So most people are going to get around that. If you get really good scores in the 15s and higher, fantastic. And some people have a bit, lower. Min-maxes tend to have a focus for, this is the kind of character I want to play, and I'm going to make sure they're the top in every one of the things that they need to get the most out of every single ability. So we always get the highest we possibly can. And the things that don't matter, we can put them as low as we want because we don't care, because this is all we're going to play. And so it becomes very extreme. They tend to be very extreme kind of characters. And it kind of feels like there's also less role play side of it to them because they're very much about the stats. Kind of feels to me.
I think that's definitely the perception, is people will look at min-maxes as being less inclined towards roleplay. And I think we'll probably mention it a little later as well. That's not necessarily the case, but I think a lot of it comes down to the intention of min-maxing.
I think for me, I see it through the lens of, you're a gamer, not necessarily a role player or a storyteller. Being a video gamer myself who loves role-playing games, things like Fallout and stuff, where you really have to pick and choose because you cannot be the best in everything. And then you choose a specific play style, and that brings out a certain personality, and you make those choices, either, good or evil choices kind of thing, or how you interact with your fellow players as well, and how they perceive you. Like we're saying, is like, different people are going to have a different perception on that. And if it's not openly discussed, and it's like, right, how come he can do that ridiculous thing? New players aren't going to understand. Is that fair because someone's been nerdy enough to read the rule books back and forth and every optimized expansion and blah.
And going onto Reddit and seeing that I've put together this person who can do this, this, and if you want to create it, this is how you do it. And it's like,
don't show people, please.
Well, no, not necessarily though. If you're going to do it, be honest.
I appreciate it. I do appreciate someone who has taken the time and who enjoys that. If that's important to them, I will allow for it. I will find ways to nerf their character, which to me means, the nerf safe gun, safe toy weapons and stuff. I will make it harmless in ways. So that might be a fun thing for you as a DM, but it's not for everyone, because if you don't dive into the rules and you know them backwards, you come into, I don't know if you can, really?
But I think also that's an interesting perspective as well, because I think that even and again, I'm obsessed with language tonight. We talk about kind of nerfing abilities, and I think that can be misinterpreted, because I know you, Jared, are not this kind of DM, but it's like, oh, you've got this incredible character that's got optimized for magic. It's all anti-magic fields. But I think that there is that, but there's this
as a reaction
approach.
Reaction.
But then there's the playing into, it's like, oh, okay, so you've decided that you are, I don't know, you're a charisma caster, so you've maxed out on that. All right, well, what are you low on, and what situation can I put you into?
Exactly.
So it's being clever about it. So it's not a
100%. You hit the
and I'll put my hand up
with 22 health, 22 strength, and 155 health. You hit him with the wisdom saves, bro. It's too easy. It's like it leans. You lean into those stick stats because
you lean into it.
Branches off it, and that's how you mess with the characters. Don't punish them. Don't prod and poke and find their weak spots. Play with it because it's a role playing.
it's they made the choices, and if it is a trusting group, then they will learn quickly. It's like, oh, okay, hopefully in a safe way, definitely in a safe way. You should set it up. But it was my dump stat. Wisdom was my dump stat, and now suddenly I've had to turn all of my abilities on my companions because I failed against this magic save, and now I'm compelled to go after the cute little tabaxi bard who I thought was my love interest. Yeah.
That sounds very specific. Yeah,
it's very to do both. I think we've touched on both sides of like reading into a character sheet because like we were saying before, if people are putting these abilities on the character sheet, let them do it. Don't just throw that at them because they want to feel like, oh, cool, I get to use my awesome skill. And that's why I always like to, so those 6 core abilities break down into 20 specific skills in 5th edition. So I like to give people 2 options because I'm not always going to remember whether they're the, if it's a wizard, I know that their intelligence is high. So you can roll those intelligence based things for days, but I'll always go like, okay, well, if you want to do this, roll investigation, or if you want to do that, roll perception. So I quickly do that, and then it also makes them think, oh, what would my character be doing right this second? Just you can do that, and then you can also try and be aware of those skills and be like, right, I need the barbarian to roll acrobatics. That's how this particular jump works right this second. So.
I think that's a really good way to come about it. And I know when I was younger as well, I know I wanted to min-max on my characters because I really want to be good at this, and because if there's statistics and there's weighted in probability, if you've got a higher statistic or ability score, then you want to do this when you're learning about it. And that's why it's nice if you have, players who are keen to actually do something well with their characters. I really like it's trying to help. I think I don't know how it is for you guys. I'd love to know. For me, you were both touching on this, finding well-rounded different kinds of scenes to engage people in, different encounters that engage in this one strength, but in this one wisdom, or in this one charisma, or in this one dexterity, so that they have to try lots of different things, which will help some characters more than others. Some will find it easier, others not. And that also helps them work together more because they have to rely on each other.
That's what I was going to say.
It becomes the collaborative thing.
So
I think that actually kind of, so min-maxing can be valid. But I think it's, in terms of, I guess, integrating that into a positive group dynamic, it's about understanding how that plays out and how it fits into your group. I think.
A perfect segue straight into another very specific topic is what a lot of people would call metagaming or meta knowledge. We as people, we know about the modern world, and Dungeons and Dragons is a medieval fantasy world. So we understand a lot more things like physics and rules of thermodynamics and stuff. And well, it's never happened to me in particular, but I wouldn't have got bogged down for 20 minutes arguing to someone because they wanted to sleep in full plate armor near a fire, and the rules. The reenactor, sorry, the reenactor and historian friend of mine kept trying to butt in and say, actually people did that all the time, and I wanted to say, no, you can't do that, and they wanted to be ready should they get ambushed in the night, and that was the lesson I learned very early on. Reverence, if you're listening, you know. But meta knowledge is we as people know more about how the game should work and what these creatures are that we're encountering. So Curse of Strahd, we've touched on it, vampires. There's so many forms of vampire out there. So how do vampires work in your game? D&D's got its rules. You can modify it, twist it, add things, change things. So does that mean that when your players are playing in that world now that's established a theme and a setting, and there's going to be vampires as a heavy theme, it's like, right, well, I know about holy water garlic stakes through the heart. Does my player character? And that's an immediate sort of suspension of some of that knowledge for the simple story in a way.
And I think that's what we're talking about with metagaming or meta knowledge. It's that differentiation between what you as a person know and what your character knows. And I think it's something that the three of us are very familiar with on the very rare occasions we actually get to play, because you two are better at this than me. You actually know more of the rules, whereas they're more guidelines and fuzzy, and I'll Google it if I have to, and that's why I learned touch type. But I think it's that idea of how can you step away? Because it can be hard to step away. And I think when you are perhaps less experienced, it can be really hard to step away from what you as a person know versus what your character would know. And I think the level of acceptability is the wrong word. The level of disruption it can cause to a game varies with that level of experience as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think there's something interesting, isn't there, about God, it keeps coming back to the setting the expectations for me at the beginning of session zero, where you're like, guys, perfect example is Curse of Strahd. Jared, I know that you're talking, because for me, it's like, hi, guys, you may know some things about Curse of Strahd, about this vampire who rules over this place, right? And it's like, there's this. I would like, if there's anyone who knows a lot about the story, can we have a talk before the game? Because I want to just make sure we're on the same page so that your character doesn't reveal things during the game that you may know, and that you can actually go into this and allow that the experience of the learning, the experience of the new, of what this is going on for the other players who have less experience in it, and that they can enjoy it fully. I swear it's partly, isn't it, about one is knowing rules and someone knowing, really who knows the rules of how things work, as opposed to or how much story knowledge people know. I think I know I've learned as well from some less favorable experiences sometimes. And just being able to say, oh, well, look, we're on the same page. We want to make sure everyone's having an enjoyable time, and that this is a fresh experience for the characters who are in the game, not something that you're like, right, I need to collect this and then that item and then that item so that I can win the game, which is a bit like, it is a bit like min-maxing and
and I think sometimes that can be, if that's how the group wants to play and you as a game master are comfortable running that, fantastic.
Because you set that expectation at the beginning,
expectations. I think the other thing that that I think about with metagaming is when I have new players, I'll be metagaming as the DM because it's about helping them learn. So, when you have people who are relatively new and it's like, oh, you've walked into a cave and there is a rust-colored monster and you have your spells and you have your sword. It'd be like, okay, I just want you to have a think about it. So you hit it and now your sword seems to have rusted. Have you thought about perhaps other ways of attacking this?
Yeah. Giving clues, and I know what you mean, actually, and also being able to, I think that's, for intro games, is fantastic to be able to gently allow people to come into a scene and say, all right, now here you've got this chance, the option to do this or something else. What do you feel? And to be able to prompt people, I think, is really handy. And I think conversely, this is something I wanted to say at the beginning, when we're saying players, I consider a GM a player as well. So that means all of us are in the same boat when it comes to setting expectations with each other. So that idea of being able to say, a player is saying, what can I do here? Can I try this or can I get like this? Is really great. And that's like, bring it on, guys, as opposed to I do this and I do this and I expect this to happen. And it's like,
it's actually wonderful though. It's actually really, really wonderful when somebody kind of goes, I don't really kind of know what I need to, like, I want to make the right choice, as well as also a lot of peer pressure, which we could, when lots of kind of mismatched expectations and people's previous experiences, because I know Adam Koebel's talked about the first ever game he joined with his brother's game. He was much older than Adam was, and they said, look, when you join our game, whatever this was many, many years ago, very early edition, we track inter-party kills. We track how many player characters each current character has. So, of course, they pummeled him and pummeled him and pummeled him, kicked him off cliffs, did all these crazy things. But he eventually got one of his own and a few more and worked his way through it. And that was a badge of honor in that particular game. I don't recommend that necessarily. I don't think I'd want to ever do that. I think that
is a specific dynamic.
Yeah, like you'd have to have such open communication and mutual respect and understanding of that. So, you know, was that someone who didn't know any better, who joined potentially a trouble group and put up with it? And well, Adam Coble ended up making role-playing systems and things like that, and a big part of the community.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm glad he did. I'm glad he put up with it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean everyone has to.
Well, it also means he could have got there by another path.
100%.
And potentially would have had less family trauma to unpack. But I think that actually brings up a point that's a little bit sideways from what we're talking about. And we'll probably talk about this again, but I probably should mention it. I'd like to mention it, is being comfortable when expressing when this is not working for you.
Yeah.
And I know we've got a few more things we wanted to talk about, but there are, as a player and as a GM, not every group is going to work for you. Just like not every relationship is going to work for you. And sometimes without there being a right or a wrong, as in morally right or wrong, sometimes it's just not a good fit. And that's okay. I know as a game master that is much easier to say because there will always be more people wanting to play than there are people wanting to run the game. So it is very easy if I wanted to walk away from a group and find another and find another and find another. Not that I'm the best GM in the world, but there's a lot of desperate players out there. So that sounded terrible, worse than I intended. You guys love me, you know what I meant? But no, but that's true. But as a player, it didn't sound amazing.
No, I know what you mean. The idea.
Yeah.
You just immediately flipped it on yourself. That was the doozy. Not that I'm the best GM, but there's people desperate enough. And I was like,
but I mean,
no.
But the point, I appreciate it. I love you guys. But I think it is, there are groups out there, you can find them. Whether it is online, so people should not stay in situations that aren't healthy for them, that aren't fun.
No.
Especially, I mean, this is meant to be
a player from another group at my local game store the other night. I said, man, it doesn't sound like it's a group for you. Don't put up with it. It wasn't anything.
If it's not fun,
I would have said something, or, you know.
If it's not fun, it's not worth it.
It was just like, I don't really
This is meant to be.
He was very new to the game, and he was like, I don't really understand all of these weird things they're doing. And I'm like, okay. So I can't pass judgment on that. I'm not sitting there. I don't know whether they're doing something weird, but I think he was trying to hint at, like, I've created this character and it's like they're telling me I've done it wrong and things. And he's like, I've created a few characters. Like I know what I'm. I'm like, okay. Anyway.
Yeah, but I think that's it. It's people being told that they're wrong. And I think this is another thing coming back to challenges within groups is that idea, no, you did it wrong. This is not how it's supposed to be. It's this very kind of black and white view. And I think that can be very corrosive in groups. I mean, it's very corrosive in all of the arts, being told there is a right way and a wrong way, because there's not. But that is a separate soapbox that I will die on that hill another day. But I think that can be difficult as well when you have perhaps very well-established groups that have very well or very experienced players that grew up in a certain system and a certain way of playing. I think that can... Rules. Yeah, homebrew rules, or rules that you just don't use. And then suddenly somebody comes in and they do use that rule. And I think that can create interesting and difficult dynamics as well.
That's all about expectation again, isn't it? It's like this kind of leading into the rules lawyer point that we were going to bring up, which is where people who have a really good understanding of the core rules, but it's not so much about the knowledge of it, it's about the execution. And it can be a point in a game where you're in the middle of just a scene where everyone's having fun, and then there's a point where a rule comes up and one person has an idea. It could be the GM, or it could be a player of this is how it works. And another person has a very clear idea or a belief that it's a different way. And it becomes a sticking point. And that can derail a game if it becomes head-butting clashes, you know, that kind of thing of that, no, we're going to do this. And how do you guys deal with that? If that has it happened to you, and how do you deal with it?
I think I've got, I guess, a story from when I've been a player. And that's happened. And I think that, and it didn't become a conflict and it didn't become a sticking point because I think in the game that we were playing at the time, there was a lot of focus on wanting everybody to have a good time and wanting the game to continue and not get caught up on things. But for me, the experience was when somebody brought up a particular rule and they were correct. Rules as written, they were correct, but it broke the flow of the game. It broke the moment that was happening at the time. And it still annoys me a bit, and that's a valid feeling. I didn't jump up and down at the time, and I still really enjoyed that game. But I think when people think of rule lawyers, when I think of the negative connotation, it's when people who will insist on a rule because that's the rule and they don't take into account the greater context.
It's rules for rules' sake. And and I mean, I just want to maybe quickly say there are going to be people who that's important to them and they need to understand a personality dynamic. I have played at a public game store with someone who came in and was much louder than everyone and was very open and was quickly saying, oh, no, actually, and this is how this works and things like that. And was almost doing half my job for me as a DM, to be honest.
I was just about to say, you've got a DM among your players while you're running a game. That's hard.
Yeah, and for all the DMs who do get to be blessed players of ours as well, they're going to have run previous modules and have all sorts of ideas because I know that, Curse of Strahd have to, because I ran it 6 years ago.
We're still working through that. It's big impact.
Yeah, it was 6 years ago with the current season being Curse of Strahd for Adventurers League, so it was fresh. It was the hot new module. Get it now, play it fast.
Yeah.
But we played it solid for 2 years.
It's all gone.
Yeah, we played it solid for 2 years, and I got to watch all the vampire media I could, read all the whatever I wanted to, and then shape and do my own things. The reason werewolves transform in my descriptions the way they do so horrifically is from a TV show that I've watched with werewolves and vampires. Yeah. So that struck me, and I was like, that needs to be in my game. And then you can cater and shape it and do your own thing. But you also have people who now, 6 years later, have run Curse of Strahd to completion themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's...
So... Yeah.
We're not saying that rules lawyers are always bad or invalid. It can be a really valid way to play. And if that's always bad.
And really helpful with someone else who knows the rules who can say, oh, look, is this meant to happen? You're like, oh, God, I forgot. Thank you. That really helps.
Yeah. And I think we should just continue the perfect metaphor that a lawyer is. You are someone who understands, can use the rules and et cetera, but you are not the judge. You're like the jury. And like you said, Ian, it's about execution.
Yeah, it is definitely about the execution.
And it's about how does it actually come out into the game? How does it mingle and interact with the players? Communication 101, the message, the receiver, and how is that actually interpreted and actioned on the table impacts everyone. So if someone wants to interject in that process, maybe just suggest and be like, hey, do you know, or can we or should we not have, and things like that. But the one rule that everyone has to do, and I will enforce this on every game, is the rule of cool. So that trumps anything written down in any book.
So, what's the rule of cool? Can you explain that briefly?
Sure. So for me,
what is our interpretation?
The rule of cool is, can we bend? Can we manipulate? Can we push the boundaries of what the rules say and kind of insert some kind of epicness? And so, you know, there's been moments in games where people say, I want to try something. And that's a really good signal to be like, all right, everyone's aware that things might get a little wooey now. And then it's up to the DM to come up with some stuff that makes it a challenge at least, because if they're going to say, I know this normally wouldn't work, or... you know, or if it's a new player who doesn't know any better and they're finding their way and they're like, I jump across the chasm before they actually know. They're like, I'm really dexterous. I can do that. What do I roll? that chasm's 50 feet. You'd need to run this far to do that. Like they give us a common language and an understanding so that everyone goes, that's how it could and should work here.
Yeah.
But what if this was the most desperate of situations? What if he was the last person to have reach over this crumbling whatever? And they were like, okay, everyone else goes, right, we're going to lean out. We're going to try and catch him. Can we get some kind of thing? And I'll be like, well, maybe with disadvantage, or give them an opportunity to roll, because if those dice land high, everything happens. And
you definitely can figure something out.
Yeah, figure something out and work with everyone, because if the other players are going, hey, we can make this happen, it's not all just down to them, or it could just be one epic dice roll.
And I think that's it. The rule of cool is very much, to me, about if you can describe to me an epic moment, then I'm going to at least let you try. And if you fail, you're going to fail in an epically entertaining way. Because I think that is that. And I would be sad in a game if somebody piped up and was like, oh, but you can't do that according to the rules. And I think that's why when I'm running games at the start, even with groups that I've, run with for a while, it's like I look at rules as guidelines. They're more guidelines. That was a very bad pirate accent. But they are guidelines. And if you tell me you want to do something, we will figure out a way to let you try that's mechanically fair. Yeah,
absolutely. I think
make it work.
You guys both picked up on something too, because it came back to the story, and it came back to, like, if there's a moment where you guys are in the middle of a scene and this person comes up with this idea in there and they're like, can I try this? And you're like, I know by the rules this is not going to work, but this is so cool. Why can't there be? And I like that. I think things have changed as well in role-playing games over the years. So this is definitely for tips from just our experiences out there for DMs. D&D itself, in its front pages now, the 5th edition says specifically, these are the base rules. You can use as much or as little of them as you want, and it's up to your group. And I like that because it just gives you that leeway to just use or not use. As according to what's going to make the game fun and what's going to be the style for your group. And I really love the ability to call out on someone's really great idea and go, okay, how's this going to, I will find a way and we'll make a house rule up for it to make this work. Why not? Because this sounds so cool. And I love, thank you, Old Man RPG in the chat for saying yes, so cool. Hi, Kit Kat as well. Glad you're out there, and everyone else in the chat. It's please bring in the rule. I want to encourage really good ideas and different and fun ideas to try and say, you can certainly try to do this. I don't know how we'll make it work. Let's try. And that's the fun part of the game, I think.
I think I want to pick up on one thing, though, because I'm not sure if because the three of us are quite similar, and we're about story, we're about role playing, and we love that. There are people that play in a way that according to the rules, that's actually what they want to do. They want to play rules as written. And for them, the fun and what the value they get out is, how can I get around these rules as written? How can I twist them to achieve, not get around, but how can I use them and still operating within the rules, achieve what I want to achieve? And, usually I think people that love puzzles as well. But I mean, and that is a completely valid way of playing.
Strategy games and war games and that kind of stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's
which is
totally
just bringing
valid.
it straight back to metagaming and min-maxing and all of that. This is the other side of it. This is when we find the ways to allow these in. And I just have to actually pull up the Gary Gygax quote. I don't know whether this is true or where anyone's got it from, but it has echoed throughout the internet since it got on there. The secret we should never let game masters know is that they don't need any rules. And I mean, that says it all, because and the thing is, you develop as a game master, you need to learn the rules. Once you've learned one system,
guidelines.
Yeah, once you've learned a system, you can go on to others. But while you are learning, there's a process to it, and there becomes a point where you actually get to utilize this and go, right, I'm comfortable to step outside of these boundaries, step outside of the guidelines, and just freestyle. And that's a lot of fun.
Actually, I think that's a really good point. When you're starting out, having structure is really comforting. same as you start a job.
A veteran's perspective.
Yeah. I mean, because I think of, you start a new job and you don't get any training and there's no handbook and you're like, so I'll
too close.
Yeah. Training wheels. You're talking about training wheels. Absolutely.
Yeah. And rules are great for that. I don't know how to run a game, but I know that you need to have antagonists and there's a monster and it's got these, I can run an encounter from that. I know that there's an initiative order and I know that it can only attack once or twice or 3 times, depending on how legendary you've thrown into your level 1 game. But I think it is legendary actions against level 1 characters. What could possibly go wrong? But I mean, that's the thing. It's a lot of it, I think, is and a theme that's underlying everything is expectations and what is important to you about that game. And that's you both as the singular, as in you as the player or the GM, but also you as a plural verb, as a group. You, the group. I know that's not exactly correct grammar, but you get me.
I think so. I was going to, it might be, would this be a segue into, because it kind of, for me, it linked into something that it links to everything we've talked about so far, and it's another expectation, and this is about how players perceive the group of players and the games master, and the idea of, is it cooperation as a group, as you're collaborating and telling a story together with the games master as a guide, and ultimately being able to make decisions on things and call decisions? Or is it not cooperation? Is it a competition? And you're competing against the DM or the games master? And I, when I was younger, saw it a lot more. Thankfully, I don't see it as much now, but I remember there were games I would play where it was as a player. I felt like we're going to be killed here, and I think the GM's actually shifting the rules
as a player character.
No, as a player,
as a player character. Thankfully. Am I going to get out of this house alive?
Those games
the
were
player
hardcore, kids.
D&D was hardcore in the old days. It was
an amazing horror movie.
That actual moment, it was that moment where I thought the GM was actually going to kill our characters and was kind of bending the rules to do so. And that wasn't an expectation that had been set up at the beginning. So I was feeling a bit cheated. It felt really kind of like not great. Yeah. The other side of it is when you're a GM and there's clearly a player where you're trying to be, you're hoping you're providing a collaborative environment, but there can be a player who continually wants to beat your characters and you're the NPCs, the non-player characters who come into it, or challenges things, or like wants to win the game. Like that term, it's like
win the game.
Well, we win the game when we're having a great time. That's kind of like the story can, and it's like, but where's the end? What do we? And I think it's that again. It's an expectation thing, but I just thought it'd be good to bring up.
I think so. It's the cooperation versus competition, and I think that people who have not perhaps grown up in the tradition of collaborative games, because you think about it, Western society, capitalist society, is very much geared towards winning. Yes, I'm getting my political view into this.
Monopoly society.
Yeah, monopoly society. Yeah. So I
hate that game. I hate that game.
I don't. Anyway, we'll go into that another day. And it was actually designed as a counter to capitalism. But we can move on from that. If it's a competition, there needs to be a winner. But I don't think there's such a thing as winning in D&D. You can win. You can beat the bad guy in an encounter.
Easily solved. Give them in-game objectives, challenges, goals, quests, if you will. A foreign concept, I'm sure. No, that's what
I have a question mark over my head.
It should be what is my direction? Because I find probably the most of the conversation, once I've got an established group and we've set all these expectations, the theme, the tone, the boundary, the violence, the difficulty, it all becomes about what kind of direction are we going in? Where do you I check in with my players constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Old Man RPG's got, TP key, and I've gone total players killed. But I think a TPK is fine if that's part of the expectation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I've played a game where I was a part of a TPK. I completely agree. If it's part of the nature of the game that it could possibly happen, go with it. And I was actually part of one, and as a player, and did not expect to happen. And it was devastating. With what the hell happens now? And then the GM had already prepared possibility of, we wake up, they've actually knocked us all out, and they've imprisoned us, and it's a group of kobolds, and they're like, haha, we're going to make you slaves for us. And we had to work our way out. And we're like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
And it was, if it's part of that game and that expectation, that was not what I was feeling on the other time. I was not feeling I had a choice. I had no choice in the matter.
Agency. That's the key thing.
Agency.
Player agency, GM agency. You should never feel disempowered by this game, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that is
what we talked about is when GMs and players use the rules to manipulate that to kind of either mitigate an entire otherwise worthy challenge.
Yeah.
If they have a magic item that's very specific for that situation, again, use it as an opportunity for someone to do something cool, but also, if someone's doing that in order to be like, wow, my thing,
I win.
Exactly. If they're trying to do that and that doesn't, and also if that doesn't actually develop the story, move the story forward, get them any closer to achieving their quest and goals and things, it's superfluous. It's not really necessary. Side quests, development, all of this stuff. It's not about just how can we quickly and efficiently run this dungeon. That's also a fun game mode because that's awesome.
If expectations are there.
It's so much about how you deal with it and how you continue, I feel, to encourage the players to play and to how I feel like that's a really wonderful game. If I feel like I'm being encouraged to play all the time, if I feel like I'm doing this and I can see the players are enjoying themselves, it's like, okay, they don't mind they're getting killed. They know something's going to happen and that something will come out of it. Like, okay, we're on the right track. Something good's coming out of it.
Yeah. And I think that's like, I know that we're sort of getting close to time, but I think that all the way through, we've kind of been talking about how we approach these different challenges. And there's a couple of themes that I think are coming out of that. And it's communication. And as we've said, I think the three of us, big surprise, are comfortable communicators. I think that we are comfortable expressing not just what's important to us, but also our needs as GMs. Maybe less so as players. I would posit that we're much better at managing being GMs because we're more experienced at that than we are at being players. Yeah. But I think, and so I think that to me, it's the communication, but within that is being comfortable expressing your needs in a fair and emotionally intelligent way. But are there things that you guys do you think have come out as themes for you for managing some of these challenges or some of these more uncomfortable group dynamics?
Build trust as much as possible. For me, the biggest thing is, I mean, communication is literally what we're doing and what we're talking about in totality. But develop a way of building trust, develop a way of getting feedback from your players. I do giving props or wishes and stars at the end of every session now. And that means what do they really enjoy that someone else did? It was really cool, acknowledging their choices, their spotlight moment. Also, the GM gets amazing feedback. It's like, wow, I really love the voice you did tonight, etc. That's all positive, good juju that we're just putting out there, positivity. And then there's wishes, which is, what are we lacking? What did we miss? What did we wish? What have we not done for a while? And when my players said, bring me combat, I left 3 out of 4 people unconscious at the end of the session. So careful what you wish for.
Bring me. It's always the healer that goes down. I had a party of 6, 2 healers. Guess who was unconscious?
The healers. But develop a tradition of communication. Make it a habit. Make it important. Ask like an individual. Like, this is actually something I want to do. This is my kind of little challenge I'm setting for myself as my current Spelljammer game. If you're all listening, this is going to happen over the next few weeks. I'm going to choose one player and communicate with that player over a week and work on some stuff and be like, hey, what are you enjoying? What do you like? What do you need? What do you what can we do to make something cool? Is it, what are we going to incorporate some backstory, or give you a cool magic item? How are you going to get that magic item?
Yeah.
And then next week do another player. And I'm not necessarily going to immediately implement any of this.
Yeah.
It's meta gaming, it's forethought, it's expanding on the opportunity to curate a game specifically for your group.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to try and do.
How about yourself, Ian?
Yeah, I mean, you've definitely summed up the communication side. I completely agree. They're setting it from an early stage, but the continued, I love that you said develop a tradition, develop a culture of at every session of giving feedback. I do something similar as well, in the sense of being able to also get people to look out for each other and sort of like, okay, vote for another person for something they did in the game that they really loved. And so that you can vote for an MVP or a most valuable player, because then it's always getting them to look out for other people, which is a really great way of saying, I really like what you did. And even if usually it means I'll be giving them, like in D&D, there's heroic advantage, which is like inspiration. They can use it. It's like a gold token. I've got, hey, you can trade this in. If you've got a crappy roll next game, hand it in, you get to roll again. And it's like something people work towards, which is really great.
Awesome. That's a great house rule.
Even if they don't get that token for that session, at the same time, if you've been recognized for something you've done, that's great. It's like and it encourages people to do things and to try things as well. So I love your wishes and rewards systems as well. I think, and that encouragement of being able to just talk about, hey, look, if you want to talk about something about the character, just drop me a line, get in touch with me as well, to continue building that trust with people to talk, and that it's okay to talk outside if need be.
If they don't utilize it, doors always open. That's my policy.
I don't say doors always open. I'm like, leave me a message on the Discord and I will try and get back to you.
Yeah, I said boundaries. Setting boundaries. I was going to say, actually, setting boundaries is a good thing too, because you can set boundaries with your group and they can set it with you and in the game to say, bullying's not acceptable. Like, so it's an expectation.
That's something that should always be.
That's just
absolutely.
The rule of cool is not the only rule. No harassment, no negative behavior, no attacking, no bullying, no punishing people. And from the DM's perspective, don't punish people, don't exclude people, but have a limit. I have to, unfortunately, playing in a public space so frequently, be like, hi, I would love to tell you about D&D, just not with my full group. Sorry. That's how
and thanks everyone in the chat as well about the feedback on those mechanics. I agree. I think these guys have some fantastic things. I like the idea of the DM inspiration of a D10. That's an interesting approach as well. I like it.
Well, that's the thing. I have a tough time actually thinking of moments when I want to give out an inspiration, and so I kind of find myself giving it out after the fact. And a brilliant friend and player of mine has some really nice heavy metal coins, and they were just kind of like pirate gold. It wasn't like anything fantasy specific. But we used that for a session as inspiration, and it meant that I had them in my hand. I had something tactile. I was like itching for an opportunity to chuck one of these coins at a player. Just to bring it back one more time, that was the Curse of Strahd one shot that I ran for 12 hours. And guess what that player did? Gave us all one coin to commemorate that campaign in that game. So,
that's fantastic.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, that is amazing.
Just positivity.
Always ending on positivity. We are going to have to wrap up there. Comment I need to say, please don't throw heavy metal coins at your players. That is not what we are advocating here.
I said, I tossed it. Oh no, this is payback for all the players who go, I chuck I flick them a coin, and I'm like, roll a dexterity, and they're like, what? And I'm like, flick a coin to me right now. I promise you get it wrong.
How much damage does a coin do? One has to worry. Actually, I think I have had someone downed who had 1 hit point, and someone did something offhand, and they rolled a 1. It was, don't aggressively hug. But that's a story for another time. Speaking of stories for another time, that is pretty much our discussion for the week. Thank you everybody in chat for your inputs. It's always a pleasure to have you guys here.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you to my wonderful co-GMs, DMs, wonderful human beings, and I'm even pointing in the right direction. I'm very proud of myself. We will be back next week. Yes. One person
Yes,
puts
we
themselves
will.
in the middle and they can point in
too
either
easy.
direction, and it happens to be the person that sets up the scenes. It's fine. We are actually going to be back a little earlier. So we are planning
you
a
don't have
couple
to
of...
wait a week.
Yay! We are planning a couple of
Yeah.
surprise streams, a couple of cozy streams this weekend. So if you have
What have we
time,
got?
please do swing by on Saturday, one day on the weekend, where we are hoping, or at least one of us hopes to talk about character creation.
Yeah.
I can do words.
Cremation?
I speak clearly.
Goodness.
Character
Cremation. Talking about character deaths
We're
again.
going in
Yes,
a different direction.
Saturday, 1
Saturday.
p.m. Sim from our new
Joining.
player conversation is joining me to create a player for this Curse of Strahd one shot I'm running on public holiday. So we are going to be engineering and talking about using the rules to create a character that is going to be fun and thematic for the story, as well as effective in running a Ravenloft one shot. So
I think that'll be very exciting. There may be another surprise
very
stream
cool.
that is coming down to factors maybe within or without our control, but it wouldn't be a surprise if we told you about it. And we will also be back next Thursday with our normally scheduled programming. Purdy, I just got to call out, the monk in the hands of a monk is a very dangerous weapon. I love that idea so much. So much. And I feel that has to make an appearance somewhere. Please do follow us on socials. We're on Facebook. We are on Discord. We're in Discord. Join the server to continue the conversation. We always love all the things that people bring to us in there. YouTube is coming, I promise. But follow us anyway on there.
it's there.
Yeah,
It's there already too.
season 1 is there.
There will be more too.
It is coming
Yeah.
up. Just run it over and over again. But yeah, we will wrap up there. Thank you all so much for joining us. I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and we will see you some other time.
We'll see you.
Thank you all. Love you very much. Keep an eye out for the next shows. And see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. See you guys.
Bye.